Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another awesome episode of the Golden Age. This is our series of Warhammer Fantasy Battle Reports, and this is Battle Report number 70. It is a 2,500 point battle that is fought between Vampire Counts and Ogre Kingdoms. My buddy Scream with the Emo is playing House von Koss with the Vampire Counts, and I'm playing the Legion of the Hellmouth, my 2,500 point Ogre Kingdoms army. So I'm pretty excited about this battle report. So far, my record with my 2,500 point Ogre Kingdoms army has been kind of middling. I've been winning as many as I've been losing my battle reports, so I'm seeking some redemption this time around, and this time I'm looking forward to smashing some undead. So with that being said, let's go and play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Valor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Assemble the army!
So the scenario rule for playing for this one is Battle Line. It is the most common type of Warhammer we play on this channel. You guys know it, we love it. It's got standard deployment rules as well as standard victory conditions. So with that being said, and the scenario rules over with, let's go and talk about the battle plan real fast. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x6 table. I'm deployed on the near side of the table, while my buddy Screamo the Emo is deployed on the far side of the table as well. And this one is going to be kind of a challenging battle for me, I'm not going to lie. And the reason why is because this army that I'm going up against is very magic heavy. There's also a lot of ethereal units that I'm fighting against, and I don't have that many magical attacks or magical weapons in my Ogre Kingdoms army, so I am kind of worried about that. Not to mention there's also a bunch of ruins that are scattered throughout the middle of the battlefield, which kind of limits my avenues of approach in order to engage my enemy. This time around, I'm actually going to play a little bit defensively this time, and the reason why is because Vampire Counts are kind of like my army in the sense that they have to march across the battlefield as quick as they can to engage me and kind of overwhelm me en masse. So because of that, time is on my side, so hopefully I can whittle down his forces a little bit before Scream and Emo actually charges into me. My plan is to wait till the undead get to around near the middle of the battlefield where that bell tower is located at, and once they reach that area, I can countercharge and then go up against them real quick. Planning on taking them apart with my powder gangers, at the same time engaging in close combat with some good old-fashioned ogre charges from my iron guts as well as my bulls, and of course whittling down a little bit with my two iron blasters on my left-hand flank. Now the thing I do have to worry about though are those two units of hex sprays that are located right in the middle of the battlefield on the right-hand side, because if they go after my ogre bulls or if they go after my Mournfang cav, I really don't have a solution for those guys because I have no magical attacks in either of those units. So it could prove to be kind of brutal if that's the case. And that's pretty much my battle plan for this one. So with the battle plan over, let's go and talk about deployment real quick. So starting with my left-hand flank, I got my two iron blasters. On the left-hand side, that is the Anvil of Hell, and right next to the right-hand side is Hammer of the Gods, my two iron blasters. And pretty much their job is to kind of skirt up the left-hand flank and take pot shots at his large targets, hopefully against his Terrorgeist as well as his Mortis Engine. And that pretty much makes my left-hand flank on this one. In the center of my army is where all my infantry forces are located at. Starting off on the left-hand side, that is the Powder Gangers. It is a unit of 8 Lead Belchers with a Bellower. They're equipped with Lead Belcher guns as well as light armor. In the center is Stankgum's Legion. It is a unit of 9 Iron Guts with Bellower as well as Standard Bearer. They're packing great weapons and heavy armor, and they also have the Standard Discipline, giving that unit +1 to their leadership. And the reason why I have that Standard Discipline is because my characters are also located in this unit as well, so they definitely need the boosted leadership. On the left-hand side, that is my Firebelly, Burps Blood, the Pyromaniac of the Steppes. He's a level 2 Lord of Fire. He's got a great weapon as well as the Hellheart, and I really love that magic item because it really causes all kinds of problems in magic phases, which is great because my opponent is a very magic heavy army on this one, so that would be pretty awesome. In the center is my general, Taijin Khan, the Right Fist of Hell. He's my Slaughter Master. He's also my general. He's a level 4 Lord of the Great Maw. He's got Fencer's Blades, Glittering Scales, as well as Greedy Fists as well. So he's got a +1 to his strength as well as a 6-up ward save. He's also got -1 hit against because of the Glittering Scales, and he's also weapon skill 10, which means that most of my opponents will have to be striking at 6-up in order to hit him, which is always a good thing. And the far on the right hand side is my last character, that is Korgel the Giant Breaker. He is my Bruiser. He is a Battle Standard Bearer upgrade with great weapon as well as heavy armor. He's got the Giant Breaker big name as well as carrying the Dragonhide banner for our 2d6 strength 3 hits that causes from the breath attack, which also causes your opponent to always strike last. Not such a big edge against my opponent because he is playing undead and they usually strike last anyway, but at the same time though, strength 3 hits with breath attack is always a good thing. And then far on the right hand side, that is the Red Rovers. As you know, have 6 ogres. They got a Bellower and Standard Bearer in that unit as well, and they're equipped with hand weapons, light armor, as well as iron fists. And that makes them my center of my deployment area. And finally, my far right hand flank, these are the Beast Claw Raiders. It is a unit of 4 Mornfang Cavalry with Bellower as well as Standard Bearer. They're equipped with hand weapons, heavy armor, as well as iron fists. And I am kind of worried about these guys a little bit because they don't have any magical attacks, and my opponent has his unit of Hex Wraiths, both of them vanguarded up right across from them. So I am kind of worried about these guys. And that pretty much makes up my deployment. So with that over with, let's go across the battlefield and talk about Scream of the Emo's deployment. Alright, so now we go to my friend Scream the Emo. This is kind of his left flank. On the far left hand side there, that is the Rolling Bones. It's a corpse cart. It has no upgrades on it whatsoever. It's just a normal corpse cart, which is great because if it gets any buffs, it gives everybody always strike first, so with Vigor Mortis, so that's kind of terrifying. Right next to him on the right hand side, next to that, that is the Walking Dead of San Reme. It is a unit of 39 zombies with Standard Bearer as well as Musician, and they're organized in a column formation of 5 wide as well as 8 deep because that kind of formation works best for zombies. Leading that unit, of course, are 2 Necromancers. The guy on the left-hand side, that is Sinister Jeffrey, the Librarian of Curses. He is a level 2 Necromancer with the Lore of Vampires. He's also carrying the Cursed Book. And right next to him on the right-hand side on that 40mm base, that is Gauntfield of Carrion Crows. He is a Master Necromancer, level 4 Lore of Vampires, and he's casting with them the Book of Asher. So he gets +1 to his Dispels as well as +1s to his casting abilities, which is really important because, you know, right behind them on the right hand side, that is the Calliope of Chaos, and that is a Mortis Engine with the Blasphemous Tome, giving him +2 to his spells for casting Lore of Vampire spells, which means that he has 3-up casting bonus, which means that just with his wizard levels alone, as well as that Book of Asher, he's casting on 7s, which is actually pretty devastating. Makes him very, very powerful in terms of magic. And making up the center of his deployment, that is a huge honking unit of 49 Crypt Ghouls called the Balefire Carnival. They're led by a Crypt Ghast, and also in that unit as well is his general. His general is Marduk von Koss, the Baron of Drakenfels. He's a Strigoi Ghoul King. He's a level 1 Lore of Vampires. He's equipped with Scab Scrath, the magic weapon, as well as a Dragonbane Gem. He's also got the Aura of Dark Majesty, giving everybody around him within -1 to leadership, as well as Curse the Revenant as well, giving him +1 to his wounds. This guy is kitted out for the Death Streak ability that the Scab Scrath gives him, so that way he has a shooting attack as well. And then right behind them on the back there, that huge monstrosity, that is Volkar, the Beast of Blutfold, and it is a Terrorgeist. And I fear that thing because that Death Streak ability that it has is super deadly as well. And then on the right hand side there, we got 6 Crypt Horrors called the Ravenous. No upgrades to those guys, and that pretty much makes it the main battle line deployment for my friend Scream of the Emo. And then finally, vanguarded 12 inches in front of his main battle lines are 2 units of 5 Hex Wraiths apiece. They're called the Masks of the Red Death on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, it's called the Mask of the Black Death. Both units have 5 Hex Wraiths, no upgrades. And those guys are terrifying because they are ethereal, and they also have magical flaming attacks, all kinds of bad things. And I have no real answer for these guys if they should charge my left-hand units in close combat. So that is also super terrifying as well. Plus, they also cause terror, which is in and of itself pretty scary too. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Scream of the Emo and I roll off for initiative to see who will go first. So that takes it directly to the top of turn number 1, and the vampire accounts managed to get the initiative on this one, so Scream of the Emo goes first, and the first thing he does, of course, is declare charge of the both units of Hex Wraiths, which he successfully lands, and both of those units of Hex Wraiths go crashing directly into my Mordheim Cavalry, so my Beast Claw Raiders are now engaged in close combat, which is a really bad nightmare scenario for me because I have no magical attacks in that unit, and yeah, it's going to be really painful to fight against those guys. Meanwhile, he just pretty much marches everything else forward. He has vampire accounts, so closing the distance to get to me is pretty much his MO. So starting off on the left hand side, he actually march flies Volkar the Beast of Blutval to land right behind the ruins there on the left hand side of the table. That way he's also protected from cannon fire, which is pretty smart for him, and of course he can get closer to my 2 Iron Blasters on the left hand side. Everything else marches forward, so Rolling Bones as well as the Walking Dead of Samurai May move forward 8 inches. Right next to him on the right hand side, the Balefire Carnival does exactly the same thing, and the Calliope of Chaos is right in tow, so that way it's within range of giving one of their boosts. They did the Dark Aura from the Reliquary, which everyone has a 6 up regen save right now for all these units, so that's pretty rough. At the same time, he also marches up the Ravenous on the right-hand side too, aiming for that gap between the 2 ruins there on the right-hand side to go for an excellent flank charge. And that pretty much makes up his move phase on this one. Here's a close-up of Volkar the Beast of Blutval getting ready to charge directly into my Iron Blasters, as well as Rolling Bones and the Walking Dead of Samurai May in tow. And here's a close-up of the Balefire Carnival with Marduk von Koss, the Baron of Drachenfels, leading it, as well as the Calliope of Chaos for support. Over on the right-hand side, here's a close-up of the Ravenous. The 6 Crypt Horrors are making their way towards my right-hand flank of my army. And here's a close-up of the Mask of Red Death and the Mask of Black Death charging directly into my Mordheim Cavalry, and both units of Hex Wraiths are getting ready to chop up my guys, so that part is terrifying as well. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. So during the magic phase, my opponent Scream of the Emo was able to cast Raise Dead with Gauntfield of Carrion Crows, managed to summon up a unit of 9 zombies, and he puts them exactly 1 inch away from my Powder Gangers, so that way they kind of act as human shields. So I do open fire my Powder Gangers, I'm going to shoot through these units of zombies first, so that way the rest of his army is pretty much left unscathed, which is actually a pretty smart idea for him to do that. And finally, also managed to get the spell off Hellish Vigor as well. He gets the large boosted version of it, so everything within 12 inches gets rerolled to failed roll rerolls on their failed to wounds. That is what they end up doing for their attacks as well. He tried to get off Van Hell's Dance Macabre, but I managed to stop that one because the last thing I need is these guys, getting even closer to me. So I kind of managed to stop that off as well. I also managed to stop him a little bit from casting, I believe it was one of his Invocation of Nekahara, I think is what it was, Heck. So I managed to stop. I think it was the one for his level 2 wizard. Gauntfield Carrion Crows that managed to bring up 7 more zombies to add to the Walking Dead of Samurai May. And since that spell went off, of course, these guys also have Vigor Mortis as well, so because of that, they always have to strike first, which is terrifying to have on zombies. And that pretty much makes it the magic phase on this one. So with the magic phase over with, we skip the shooting phase because none of the vampire counts are close enough to shoot with their death streak abilities, and we go directly to the combat phase. So in the combat phase, it was actually pretty lucky for me, all things considered. My opponent only managed to get off 1 wound onto one of my Mordheim Cavalry, and of course I was unable to counterattack because these guys are ethereal, so I can't really do anything against them. The only thing I do have going for me, I do have a standard bearer, so that also protects me with 1 combat res, what it does. The Mask of the Red Death, which is the unit on the right hand side, they didn't manage to do anything at all, so even though they charged, I kind of countered their 1 point of combat res with my standard bearer, so that part was kind of nice. However, the Mask of the Black Death, I believe, managed to get 2, 1 for charging and also 1 for causing wounds, and I took away 1 of those points with my standard bearer, but they technically won. They beat me by 1, which dropped my leadership down to 6, which was pretty terrifying, but lucky for me though, I managed to roll a 4, so these guys aren't going anywhere, so that part was kind of nice. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Ogre Kingdoms. So we take us directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Ogre Kingdoms, and this photo is taken after the movement phase. And unfortunately for me, I kind of failed my charges. I originally tried to charge off with my Snakecombs Legion as well as my Red Rovers. I know originally my battle plan was to wait for my opponent to get towards the bell tower, but I got a little gun shies when it ended up happening. I just didn't really want those guys to countercharge against me, so I did try to take the initiative and charge forward. Unfortunately though, I failed both times. I failed with my Red Rovers, so because they only go flying forward 6 inches, that's about the far as they get, and the same thing with Snakecombs Legion, they only go forward I think 3 inches when it's all said and done, so not much happening there. Of course my Mordheim Cavalry, they're still engaged in close combat with the Hex Wraiths, so they're not going anywhere. At the same time, I can't charge forward with my Powder Gangers because I want to be able to shoot those zombies and get rid of those guys nice and quickly. And then finally, of course, I also have my 2 iron blasters. I just kind of move them just slightly so that way they get load line of sight directly into my opponent's main lines, so that way they can cause some problems that way. And that pretty much makes up the move phase for this one. So here's a close-up of the Anvil of Hell as well as the Hammer of the Gods, getting ready to open up fire on the main lines of the undead. Unfortunately for me, I will not be able to target Volkar the Beast of Blutfall because he's hiding behind those ruins. So my target will have to go after soft targets instead because I really can't go after the big boy. And here's a close-up of both Stakeham's Legion as well as my Red Rovers filling their charges, which is pretty sad because I should have just waited, but of course I was being impatient. And finally, here's a close-up of my Mordheim Cavalry from the Beastclaw Raiders, still currently engaged with the Mask of Red Death and the Mask of Black Death. So with the move phase over with, you go directly to the magic phase. So in the magic phase, ended up working pretty well for me. Managed to get off Fulminating Flame Cage off directly onto the Mask of Black Death, so that part was kind of cool. Managed to plink off 2 Hex Rays when it's all said and done as well. And the nice part, of course, is that these Hex Rays do move. They suffer another D6 Strength 4 hits, so that's 2 less Hex Rays I've really got to worry about. And that's all I really could do because it's a Hex spell and I can get and cast that within close combat, and so nothing else I could do from there. And I also managed to cast off a boosted version of Fireball directly into the Calliope of Chaos. Unfortunately, though, I was only able to put 1 wound onto that Mortis engine, so that part was kind of sad. But at the same time, though, the Mortis engine does have regen, and since I hit the Flaming Attack, it did lose its regeneration save, so that part was pretty epic. So, you know, I'll take what I can get at this point. The rest of my Great Maw spells are pretty much dispelled from my opponent, so I wasn't able to do anything from there. My opponent let me have the Flaming spells because he was saving up his Dispels dice for my Lord of the Great Moss spells, because I was planning on using Toothcracker as well as Troll Guts, but he managed to dispel those without any sweat at all, because that Book of Asher, man, whew, makes it pretty dangerous for that guy. So with the magic phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, ended up being very magical. What I decided to do is open up first with the Hammer of the Gods, my Iron Blaster. Managed to hit that Mortis engine. Not only did I manage to hit it, I also managed to put 5 wounds onto that bad boy. So because of that, the Mortis engine explodes, and because it does, the Reliquary also explodes as well. It managed to kill 2 Crypt Ghouls from the Balefire Carnival. Also managed to kill 1 zombie from the Walking Dead of Zamrame. And managed to put a wound onto Rolling Bones as well, which is pretty nice as an added bonus. So right off the bat, one of those Mortis engines is destroyed, which is pretty epic. Unfortunate for me, though, when I tried to open fire with the Anvil of Hell, I did suffer a misfire on that one. I rolled a 3, so because of that, my cannon will not be able to fire this turn or the next, so that part was pretty unfortunate. And finally, in the shooting phase, my Powder Gangers had no problem whatsoever wiping out those 9 zombies that are placed in front of them, and everything is right with the world. So with the magic phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And the combat phase ended up pretty much being a stalemate for the most part. My opponent was able to put an additional wound onto one of my Mordheim Cavalry using the Mask of the Black Death, which is the unit of Hex Race on the left-hand side. So that part was kind of sad. They actually tied with me, so I didn't have to go anywhere with that one. And at the same time, my opponent's Mask of the Red Death was unable to do anything, so because of that, my Mordheim Cavalry are still standing for another round. So that part is kind of nice as well. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Vampire counts. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Vampire counts, and this photo is taken at the move phase, and this photo shows you the penalty of being overeager, as you can see in this photo. So in this case, my opponent decided to charge me instead, which is really horrible because now I can't use my Ogre charge abilities, which is kind of sad. So first off, he declares a charge with the Ravenous. The Ravenous have no problem charging directly into my Red Rovers, so that part was kind of sad. At the same time, he also declares a charge with the Balefire Carnival, who makes it directly into Stakeham's Legion. So now both of those units are engaged in close combat. At the same time, he also declares a charge of Volkar the Beast of Blutfall, who charged directly into the Anvil of Hell on the left-hand side of the battlefield. So now one of my Iron Blasters is now engaged in close combat, which is terrifying because I think has a Death Streak ability they could use in close combat, and that could spell the end for my Iron Blaster. And at the same time, he also marches up both Rolling Bones as well as the Walking Dead as Zamrame, just moving up their normal 8 inches to lend some support for the Balefire Carnival. And that pretty much makes up his move phase for this one. So here's a close-up of the left-hand flank with Volkar the Beast of Blutfall charging directly into the Anvil of Hell, and that's pretty terrifying because now I might have to lose that one. The only benefit was I managed to pass my leadership test, so I don't fail my fear test against Volkar, so that part was kind of nice. And here's a close-up of the Balefire Carnival charging directly into Stankum's Legion, as well as the Walking Dead of Samurai May and Rolling Bones, slowly cross the distance in order to engage my powder gangers. And of course, here's a close-up of the Ravenous charged directly into the Red Rovers, as well as the Mask of Black Death and the Mask of Red Death, still engaged with my Beastclaw Raiders. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the Magic phase. And in the Magic phase, the Hellheart strikes again.
Klaatu, Marada.
And this time, because my opponent is so close to me, every single one of his magic users manages to get hit with the Hellheart. So because of that, what's his name? Sinister Jeffrey, the Cursed Librarian, he rolls a 9 on the miscast chart. Gauntfield of Carrion Crows, he actually rolls a 5 on the miscast chart as well. And the best part of all, his general, who's also a magic user because he has to be, what's his name? Marduk von Koss, the Baron of Drakenfels, rolls Snake Eyes for his result on the miscast table. So that part was just simply glorious. My laugh is an evil laugh because when it's all said and done, I actually managed to cause some pretty good damage onto the wizards of the 2 necromancers within the Walking Dead of Samurai May. Managed to put a wound onto Sinister Jeffrey, the Cursed Librarian, as well as 2 wounds onto Gauntfield of Carrion Crows, so that part was kind of nice as well. Also managed to kill, I think it was 6 zombies out of the Walking Dead of Samurai May, but that's just a spit in the ocean when you think about it because these guys are zombies and more of them will always come back no matter what you do. However, the best part though was the internal magical detonation that just took place right in the middle of the Balefire Carnival. When it was all said and done, I managed to kill 6 Crypt Ghouls, so that part was pretty awesome. Sorry, not 6 Crypt Ghouls. I managed to kill 15 Crypt Ghouls, there we go. Managed to kill 6 as well as the 9 in the back rank, so that part was pretty epic as well. Unfortunately, I also lost 2 Iron Guts in the exchange, but that was okay because the icing on the cake was the additional kill that took place. And that additional kill was on the General. The General suffered a wound, which is pretty awesome as well, but when you roll off to see exactly what ended up happening to his General, he rolled a 1, and his General gets sucked into the warp and gets killed right off the bat, which is amazing, because that means at the end of this turn, all of his undead units have to take instability checks to see if those guys end up falling apart because their General died, and that part was just glorious. Just so much glory. So with that being said, we go directly to the shooting phase, and in the shooting phase, of course, Volkar, the Beast of Bloodfall, he does his Death Streak ability directly into the Anvil of Hell, and manages to atomize that poor thing by screaming its ears off directly into my Iron Blaster. So with his brain hemorrhaging and his, Rhinox dying from being shattered to pieces by a epic, scream of the emo death metal roar, my Iron Blaster gets destroyed. So that part was kind of sad. So with the shooting phase over, they go directly to the combat phase, and once again it ends up being another stalemate between the Mask of Black Death and Red Death against my Beastclaw Raiders. They did manage to put 2 more wounds directly onto my Mornfang calves, so that part was pretty tragic, and of course I was unable to do anything back to them. Luckily for me though, I rolled Snake Eyes on my break test, so because of that my Mornfang cavalry did not go anywhere, and the Beastclaw Raiders survived to fight another day. Meanwhile, combat between my Red Rovers as well as the Ravenous was not as well as expected as I thought it would. In the end, the Ravenous managed to kill one of my Ogres, so that part was kind of sad. And I failed to cause any wounds back, so that part was horrific. So needless to say, the Ravenous win this combat. They end up causing 3 wounds, as well as getting another combat rank bonus from one of their ranks. And they also charged as well, giving their whole combat resolution to a total of 5. Now, I have a Standard Bearer, so that part is kind of nice, so it drops them down to 4. So needless to say, my guys are leadership 7, they dropped down to leadership 3, and I have to take a break test to see if my guys run or not.
Retreat! Retreat!
Get the hell out of here!
And as you can guess, my Red Rovers failed their break test, so they get ran down by the Ravenous. And to make things worse, the Ravenous charged directly into the right-hand flank of Stankum's Legion. So that part was kind of horrific as well. Now, combat between Stankum's Legion as well as the Balefire Carnival was completely one-sided. As you can see in this photo, I managed to kill, I think, 25, I think it was all said and done? Yeah, managed to kill 25 of those Crypt Ghouls without any problems whatsoever. I did lose one of my Iron Guts as a result of that, but at the same time though, it was all kinds of glorious. I attacked with a breath weapon from Burps of Blood. I also opened up with the Dragonhide banner as well. I also used all my combat between my characters as well as the 2 Iron Guts behind them, and combined with Stomps, it was glorious, and it was a wonderful, wonderful bloodbath as Crypt Ghouls were just dying left and right. Unfortunately for my opponent, the difference between our combat res was enough to vaporize the rest of the crypt ghouls, so those guys all died off, and since I won combat, I did a quick combat reform with Staincomb's Legion, and had them turn to face the right hand side, so that way they can square off directly against the Ravenous. And I'm really looking forward to that combat, because if anybody could take on this unit of 6 crypt horrors, there we go, it's my Iron Guts, and so I'm really excited to see how that combat will go as well. And obviously, because Volkar the Beast of Bluefall managed to destroy the Anvil of Hell, it overruns and goes directly into the Hammer of the Gods. So that part is kind of scary, because that thing could death streak my Iron Blaster to oblivion. So with the combat phase over with, we don't go to the next turn, because we have to do instability tests for all the undead units for having the general died. So because of that, we go directly to the Slain General test, because Marduk von Koss, the Baron of Drakenfels, died, and everybody has to take leadership tests. And the difference between their failed leadership tests and the score that is rolled equals to the amount of guys that end up dropping dead. So for the Mask of Red Death, those guys all got vaporized, which is pretty awesome. At the same time, the Mask of the Black Death, I believe they only lost 2 more Hex Wraiths, so that part was not so great for my opponent. Great for me, but not so great for Scream of the Emo. At the same time, for the Ravenous, they didn't lose one of their Crypt Horrors, so that part was kind of nice. They actually failed their leadership test by 3, so that part is epic for me, because that's one less Crypt Horror I have to worry about fighting against. However, the real detriment took place over here between the Walking Dead of San Reme as well as Rolling Bones. Rolling Bones just did atrocious on his leadership test, so because of that, the corpse card just gets vaporized and just falls apart right then and there. And because Necromancers also count as undead, they have to roll as well, and unfortunately for my opponent, he failed his rolls for both Sinister Jeffrey, the Cursed Librarian, as well as Gauntfield, the Carrion Crows, so both of his magic users die, which means now that there are no more magic users whatsoever left in the Vampire Count's army, which means they'll do this test every single round. Not to mention, he also lost 8 more zombies from the Walking Dead of San Reme as well, so that part was tragic. And finally, Volkar the Beast of Bluefold also failed his leadership test by 2, so because of that, the Terror Guy suffers 2 wounds as well. And that pretty much makes up the Slain General test for the Undead Army on this one. And it's this point that my friend Scream of the Emo decides to call the game at this point, because he has no more magic users left on the battlefield, which means that every single round his army will take crumble checks, and he just doesn't have enough forces left to kind of take on the rest of my army. So because of that, this game is now officially over, so we're going to take us directly to the after action report.
That's it, man. It's game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, now it's time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for the Golden Age battle report number 70, and this one ended up being a victory for Commander CheapSkate. I managed to win 1,870 victory points as opposed to Scream of the Emo, who earned 312. In the end, Scream of the Emo lost Marduk von Koss, the Baron of Drakenfels, Gauntfield of Carrion Crows, Sinister Jeffrey, the Cursed Librarian, the Bellfire Carnival, the Rolling Bones, Mask of the Black Death, as well as the Calliope of Chaos. I, on the other hand, only lost my Red Rovers. And the reason why I won this battle report is because the Hellheart strikes again. This really helped me out, this battle report, especially since my opponent has so many magic users. And plus, not to mention, magic users are also extremely critical for a Vampire Count's army. If you take out all their magic users, their army just kind of falls apart for the most part. Which was really lucky for me, because I really didn't have a solution to deal with the Hex Wraiths or the Terror Guys who were attacking the flanks of my army. Those things were just taking, just taking my guys apart and just tearing through my flanks, which is pretty bad for me. And plus, luckily for me, Marduk von Koss was also sucked in the warp and was killed, which really caused his army to fall apart, which really helped me out as well. And I got extremely lucky, because both of his Necromancers, Gauntfield the Carrion Crows, as well as Sinister Jeffrey the Cursed Librarian, they also died too, which allowed his army to just even be doubly more destroyed, because there's nothing left to keep those guys alive. It really pretty much caused an exponential chain of events that would just cause Scream of the Emo army to wither away and die, and that netted me the victory. I am really proud of Stakeup's Legion for dealing with the Balefire Carnival. Usually when I see that unit take on other units, the Balefire Carnival just tears through everything that stands in its way. However, I totally curb stomped that massive horde of Crypt Ghouls, which is pretty awesome as well. So I'm really happy with the way that the Stakeup's Legion performed in that one. And even though Scream of the Emo did lose, he did a lot of correct things in this battle report. He blocked my Powder Gangers from shooting by using his Raise the Undead spell to keep those guys from, keep those guys that screen my Powder Gangers from shooting his forces. He also attacked my Beast Claw Raiders interferes with his hex rates because I have nothing to stop those guys with, so that part was pretty good as well. In the end, this was an awesome game against a really great opponent, and as always, I am looking forward to the rematch because playing against Scream with Emo is always a fun time. So that's good for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is appreciated, as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all these greatest hobby news that's related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.